Hello, everyone, and welcome to Powered by Intuition. My name is Brittany Purr, and this podcast series show is all about just off-the-cuff discussion, tapping into what is happening in current events, and then doing a teaching that goes beyond current events. It goes into ways that you can apply different things to your life. So I am streaming on 2 platforms. So if you see me looking over here, I'm looking at one platform. If you see me over here, I'm on another one. If you are on the Clock app, I will be engaging in Q&A a little later. So if you are here on the one platform that I'm on, which I can't mention it or else, I get suppressed on the other platform, feel free to hop over, crossover, go to whichever one, and hopefully you'll follow me on both. So today, wow, it has been an intense week. It has been Tuesday felt like it was already Friday with how this week has been going. And it just feels like it's not letting up. We lost a lot of major figures. And yeah, it's been pretty intense. And one of those figures I had the pleasure of working with, which was Malcolm Jamal Warner. So just publicly giving my condolences to him and his family. And, of course, Ozzy Osbourne is a major figure as well that, even though I'm not like a huge fan, still like notable, giving a nod in his direction. And, his music obviously is he's a very groundbreaking figure that had a lot that I think kind of launches us into this discussion a little bit. Now, first and foremost, Malcolm Jamal Warner is an incredible figure, actually a super heart-centered individual. So it is very devastating knowing that someone who was an individual that walked the walk, talked the talk, that spent time with anybody and everybody, that just is a blessing as a human being, passed away at such a young age. So that really hit me, especially, when it's someone that and that is just an incredible figure. Now, where it comes with Ozzy Osbourne, and I know that there's more that passed away too, which, there's that. But with Ozzy, I really want to highlight something about him because, yes, he's kind of like in this dark market, a lot of witches, goth, all that stuff, right? Metalheads, like he spoke to a market that appears darker. But then you look at his family dynamic. He had a solid family paradigm, like his family loves him. So he was a family man. He was doing something right behind the scenes, which kind of is indicative of like, well, that's interesting. What does that tell you? It tells you he's a good guy as well. Like, even though he seemed, depending on your religious undertaking, he might have seemed like a figure that was very scary, obviously shock value. And his heyday was something that he really enjoyed. But when it comes down to it, you have to look at the results of what they're creating, right? It doesn't matter if a person wears black every day. Who are they? Who are they? Who are they in their lives? Who are they behind the scenes? And so that's something to pay attention to. That is something that we get to begin to look at and unpack when we kind of step into this state of illusion. And there's a lot of illusion out there. There is a lot of illusion out there, and it is amping up. So if you do not know how to be immune to illusion, you will get lost. You will get lost in a maze. So there are multiple different things that I wanted to bring up about this. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you for joining. Where a lot of people are kind of dipping their toes in the way of suspending what's real and what's not. It's the uncanny valley paradigm. It is the paradigm where we can't tell, is this AI or is this a real person talking? I've seen so many AI videos that are like, wow, that's really close to being real. And then you see people commenting on it and you're like, oh my gosh, people, this isn't a real person. This is AI. There's things of that nature, but then there's things of our own nature. The things of our own nature where we put on the mask and we pretend. This is with glamour within multiple different industries. Like, tech industry kind of followed what the film and entertainment industry did, where it's like, yes, you have celebrities and it looks amazing to be famous and win awards. And then you meet actual celebrities and all they want is to be treated as a normal person. They don't want to be treated like anything different. It's really awkward. It's really odd. And then the instant that they get that accolade, that award, that nod, it's not what they expected at all. One that I've, had the fortune of working with, a multiple Emmy Award winner, Craig Shoemaker, actually, which I need to post that talk at some point on Obscuram. But he mentioned, like, that was the worst time in his life when he won that award. But we think it's all good because we see the fantasy. We see the illusion, and the illusion makes it look good and fun. And I've seen actresses standing at 3 a.m. under a hose, which is basically like a rain thing. It's a rain device that's made to look like real rain, and like nearly going into hypothermia on a shoot. That's the entertainment industry. Doesn't sound like much fun, does it? And there's a lot of that. It's not easy. Like, I've worked on productions that have gone 18-hour days. When I worked on Community season 2, we were regularly 12, 14, 18-hour days. That's a lot to be in one space. Either, you're running lines, you're running around, you're hanging out, it's emotionally draining. That's a lot. That's a very long day. And that's how much people have put into these things that you watch on TV. That's why, a lot of actors and actresses make the big bucks, because sometimes it's this whole long stretch of no work, and then suddenly you get a gig. For example, the first audition I did, and I got on a national commercial, which, even though it ran for 3 months, paid me $8,000 for working 8 hours a day. And that was in residuals. And then it got pulled after 3 months, although it should have ran for 3 years. And I initially should have made about 30,000 from that one commercial, because they're few and far between. Thank you for sharing, Ray, and welcome. He is on the Clock app. Thank you for joining in. But I think with Ray hopping on, he recently went to an event. And so I also want to share on that, like, the music industry is brutal. I don't know how musicians do this, how they travel from city to city. Sometimes it's back to back. Sometimes they're on 24/7. And you wonder why they're on, like, stimulants. And, yeah. So it really, like, being a performer, being in the entertainment industry is really hard on people. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. And that's a reason why a lot of people don't make it. It's grueling. It is not easy. It is not for the faint. It's fun. It's energizing. But there's a lot that goes into it. And you have to have a lot of stamina to make it through. So I'm going to segue to a different aspect that I'm seeing. And this is more of the internalized aspect. I spoke about the glamour within the entertainment industry and how things aren't what they appear. Like, you have this nicely packaged product, and, it it looks good, it looks great, it looks like it's easy and effortless, and then behind the scenes, it's a lot of like stress, screaming, things breaking, things not working, people practically going into hypothermia. It's chaos, but you know, it's fun, it's interesting. Yeah, and that's also something too, which Ray brought up again, um, is the fact that these are people, and even though they are known and seen in the industry, they just want to be seen and treated like normal, everyday people because it gets really awkward otherwise. Um, so the next segment that I want to talk on is our own illusions that we perpetuate within ourselves or a narrative that we hear within culture. And sorry, guys. Sorry. A lot of men do this. A lot of men do this. Okay. But I have had so many comments of, oh, well, you're a woman. So fill in the blank. Oh, well, you're a woman. So, this is going to work in your favor automatically. Oh, you're a pretty woman. So this is automatically, something that happens because you are this. And they fail to understand a reality. They constantly fail to ask questions about, hey, what's your experience with this? And so that's the first note that I have on countering this narrative. Get curious. What is it really like? All right. So that's the first part. What is it really like? And start asking this question out there. Some people will still hype up the glamour. Some people will. Like, what is it like being a parent? Oh, it's wonderful. It's cupcakes, unicorns, and no, it's very challenging. It's stressful. It's being up in the middle of the night. It's wondering, is your kid going to get through this cold? What's going on with them? What are these, red rash that they have on their body? There's so much, such a huge learning curve, so much to deal with. So some people will feed into that narrative, into the illusion of what it can really be like. And some people have a completely different experience. Like some people have had a horrific experience in the entertainment industry. I've been very fortunate to have few and far between. So when I hear, coming back to where I was originally going, when I hear these narratives from friends of mine that are like, oh, well, you must, I'm like, stop right there. Like, first off, see me as a human. Secondly, understand I'm a Black woman. Even if I wasn't a Black woman, each woman has an individual experience of what they've gone through in their lives. For some, it works out. For others, it doesn't. Some people can get through this because they have the means, the wherewithal, whatever, to make these things happen. And then you have other people, no matter what they do, it just never seems to work out. For whatever reason. There could be a lot of reasons behind that. But to generalize that women believe all the same thing, that women get a grace clause in all the same way, that there's always tons of suitor for each woman, and that another story that I heard was like, oh, I bet you have guys going after you all the time. And I'm like, no, actually I don't, and I probably couldn't even stand that. Fortunately, that's kind of, for me, I find it a perk to be a Black woman and the least desirable woman on dating apps, because having a friend of mine who, initially confirmed this with me, I was like, I have no idea what she was talking about. I tend to be oblivious on that because I don't want that ruling my life. We were comparing dating apps and kind of like just having fun on like Tinder stuff. And she was like, you must be getting like X amount of views because this is how much that I'm getting, with this. And she's 10 years older than me. And she looks at my profile, and she's helped people with their profile. She's like, oh, all this stuff looks good. Photos are good. How come you only have this many? And I'm like, huh? What? And she's like, I guess it's true. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then later on, I figured out, oh, yeah, Black women are the least desirable ones on dating apps. And so, hearkening to that, I have no problem with that because I don't want to be overwhelmed. I don't want to deal with people just, you know, swiping right on me just because. And so that gets interesting because I find a lot of men run with these narratives. They are being controlled by culture. Whereas if they were controlled by who they authentically are, things will get more interesting. So, another narrative that I've heard from a guy is women want a tall man. They want him, built and muscular. They want, this type of guy, X, Y, and Z. And if they'd stop to ask a woman what she really wants, yes, some women want that rich guy. Some women want that tall guy. Some women want that built guy. And then there's women that just want a dude who is going to provide a safe space for them, that is going to be a partner, that is going to be a companion. And it's unfortunate because I see a lot of men missing the mark on that and then being lonely and then being angry at women and then yada, 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 saying women don't know what they want because there are these assumptions. There is this fantasy in the mist. And then there's even a barrier against removing the veil. It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? How long did it take for people to figure out that the wizard is just this little guy behind a curtain? And that is it's such a testament and a display of what's happening in our culture right now. Because up until that point that someone came in and removed the facade, and before that, Dorothy came in and she helped remove limiting beliefs from different characters. And then goes on to remove the illusion that that entire society was under. And it really takes us to kind of be that Dorothy, to look at our limiting beliefs, to really begin to step into our own power, to really see what's happening behind the scenes, to pull that veil back, to begin to look into ourselves and really see our identity, see who we are, to really reveal our power to ourselves. And that takes curiosity. That takes kind of, sorry, TikTok is a little, my phone is being weird. That takes revealing the narratives and then really connecting with who we are, who we're meant to be. And that starts when we see others, when we begin to be curious, when we begin to go, well, is this true or is it not? And suspend the belief patterns, because a lot of times we'll pursue the ways to try to make that true. For example, if you look at right before hopping on here, I responded to a query on my tube of me Obscuram channel, where it was someone in response to the video about fascism. And I'm going to cover that aspect as well. I responded to them, letting them know that, hey, this is a leading question. This is in bad faith and is really ignorant. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And so they turned around and kind of did the victim dance thing of, well, I should have expected this from you. And I'm like, well, I guess you got what you came for. If that's what you expected, you caused it. You created it by having a question that is leading, misleading, and overall ignorant. I didn't do that. I revealed that. And if you want to play a victim to that, go ahead. That doesn't make me respect that individual as, I'm guessing they're a man, could be a woman, but I'm not going to respect that individual, whatever gender they are. They acted in a way that perpetuated their own downfall because they expected that. They set it up. And that's the same thing when we don't get curious, when we don't break these paradigms, when we don't unpack these things, when we don't remove the fantasies, we're going to lead ourselves into disappointment, and it's of our own design. So, as I said, I wanted to talk about the fascist thing. When it comes to this fascism issue, and a lot of people are celebrating it. There was recently a whole thing on, there's been a lot of talk about that. I'm not going to go into the other thing, but there's been a lot of people like, yay, fascism, this is great. And it's LARPing. It's not real. It's the idea of it that seems fun and great and is part of this manosphere of like masculinity. But when it comes to reality, when it comes to ego, when it comes to the actual inception of this, all of those who LARPed it because they want to pretend to be the one in power, because they want to feel great, because they want to call the shots for once in their lives when they feel like they're so powerless. And the reality is they're going to be the first to go when fascism really takes hold, because they will become a threat. They will become that masculine figure that the ego is going to want to just get out of the way, because these people are lining up to say, I'm the next in line. And it's like, oh, you think that, right? You think this is fun and games, and it's not. Once you get into the reality of it, it's not. It's like people joining the military for certain reasons and then end up with PTSD, end up with in a wheelchair, end up in not so fun states when they come back. Real fun. Real fun. It's all fun and games until you meet the real deal, and people don't have a real view of it. And we do this in various ways. It's like, building a business. You'll have the tech bros be like, yeah, it's easy. We'll give you all the workings. We'll give you, all this. And then you find out, well, there's a lot of ageism, a little bit of sexism. Actually, there's quite a bit of sexism, but yeah, it's I kind of live in a weird space where like I notice behaviors more, and it's more behaviors and social constructs that get to be deconstructed within that. So there's those paradigms that tend to flourish and crop up. And then there's other things like taxes. So a lot of people will tell you, if you're in a state like California, which has high taxes, well, build your company in Nevada. And it sounds great. And they'll sell you on this. And they'll say it's wonderful and it works. And, you don't have to pay any taxes. And then you find out that if you don't set it up right, California will go after you. California will go after you anyways. If you live in California, they will figure it out and they will go after you. And it's not fun. I've spoken to an attorney who had to represent an individual. And at the end of the day, that individual just paid up. Um, the structure works very differently. So it's like when some people left California to move to Texas and that sort of thing, and the tax structure is very different. It just works different, but it's still there, and people don't know that it's still there. It's just different. But people will sell you on the idea of things instead of the reality of what it's really like and how to navigate the system appropriately and what to expect. So when it comes to this sort of LARPing fascism, it gets very interesting real quick, because there's a lot of things of people being like, well, this is bad and this is bad and this is bad, but fascism's good. And I'm like, the underpinnings of what has been bad, and if you're on the Clock app or if you'd like to hop over there, check out my recent video this week where, people were being like anti-socialist and that it's terrible. And I'm like, those were in fascist dictatorships. That is the common denominator between, a socialist society not working, communist society not working, any other society not working, because you're at the mercy of one human who's saying it's my way or the highway. The highway as in, heaven. Not a pleasant heaven, like the you do not exist on earth anymore. Either you do what I say or you're gone. And people think this is great until it affects them, because they're not looking at the situation in its whole and its entirety. They're not looking at, you have to let go of your identity. You have to let go of your autonomy. You have to let go of what your free speech. You have to let go of this. You have to let go of that. And they're not looking at this scenario of what it is that they are really exchanging, even though they think at this point things are moving in their favor. Eventually, it's going to ricochet. And we're already seeing that right now with the files that have not been released, because a lot of people already knew, but some people seem to not. And that is very odd to me. That is, once again, an aspect of this fantasy that they've been under. And that fantasy at times takes the guise of like, oh, wouldn't it be great if, wouldn't it be wonderful if, haha, you're crying. And it's like, I'm not crying. What are you talking about? Okay, strange fantasies. However you get your jollies. And we get to look at it and call it out for what it is. So one of the first things that I said was, one of the ways to kind of clear ourselves from this is getting curious. Start asking questions. What is it like? Next question is like, well, if this happens, then what after that? There is not a single utopian society within a fascist dictatorship. I'm willing to be proven wrong. As a matter of fact, utopian societies don't even exist. The very idea of that is a fallacy. Because to have that exist, we have to bypass and elevate past the human nature. And most people in this day and age are displaying very clearly that that is not going to happen. A majority of people are displaying very clearly that is not part of their agenda. And we are flawed beings. Our perfection is in our imperfections. Our strength is how we navigate and elevate through our lives, how we overcome these things. How we're here in the first place is amazing. How we've survived through so much is incredible. How our grandparents or great-grandparents did it. My mom's a boomer, so that's a joke, but she survived a lot too. So when we look at these things and start stepping into a place of like curiosity and really begin to see each other's humanity and really begin to unpack that and really begin to call out the elephants in the room instead of trying to dance around them and, slide along the side of the room or, not get stepped on by their, when we really are transparent, then we begin to remove the illusion. And when we start taking our ego out from holding that illusion so close to us, because a lot of times it's a protection mechanism, a lot of times it is an excuse as to, well, I'm fine, but they're we need to drop the illusions, because ultimately it's hurting us as a society, it's hurting us in general, and it's only getting worse. So when it comes to these things, it's been a setup for failure. It's a trap at the end of the day. Like when it comes to the entertainment industry needs people. It needs a lot to make it happen, but it can also lead to burnout. When it comes to dating, there's a lot of illusion, whether it's the fake profiles or the assumptions that hold us back from meeting someone great or from really acknowledging our own greatness within the midst of the scenario. The inability to handle rejection, the inability to see ourselves as individuals and to really embrace that and to embrace our fellow human beings on this earth, no matter what their skin tone is, no matter what their intonations with speaking are, no matter what their language is, no matter what their customs or cultures are. We need to begin to see through these deceptions. Begin to get curious. And the more that I'm looking at society, the more that I am seeing it kind of lost in the illusion. And I've been there too. That's why I can see it, right? We don't see things that we haven't experienced or haven't had any sort of experience in, which is why projection happens and why a lot of people tend to out themselves on who they are and how they are with that projection paradigm. So if someone, hauls out from left field and is accusing you of something, and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? That's their experience of life that they've either perpetuated themselves or, experienced within a family scope. But that has nothing to do with you. So start seeing these things. Start calling it out. Just being like, yeah, I'm sorry you experienced that. That is nowhere on my docket. Wow. Yeah, wow. Or, when people make up stuff about you, it's like, wow, that's an interesting fantasy. Okay, have fun with that. Really start calling these things out. Let's support each other on ditching these narratives and improving ourselves. And, part of that is not letting the ego take reign. Part of that is getting into a space of safety and security. And a way that I do that, and a way that I teach that, is each day, each morning, start with a gratitude journal. Like if you want, there is the resilience journal. If you're on the clock app, you can find it on my space. And if you're here on the tube, you can find it below in the description or in the comments. And you can start there, or you can just simply start with gratitude each day. And then reminding yourself that if you are in a space where you can take time, where you can watch this, where you can get offended, I'm going to say that again. If you're in a space where you have the luxury to get offended and complain, Yes, I am calling that a luxury. That is a luxury. Let me say that again. That is a luxury. If you are in a space where you can complain, that means you're safe enough to have your voice and to complain about things. If you were not in a safe space, you would be either in shock, you would be holding on for dear life, you would be busy with other things. So if you have the luxury of complaining, of speaking those complaints, because we are not yet under a fascist dictatorship, the reality of what that looks like is you don't have your voice, you do not have your autonomy, you do not have your humanity, you do not have your individuality. You become an extension of that fascist dictator, because once you blur the lines or step out of line, that is scary to them. Fear is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. They are going to fight. They're not going to run away. They fought for their space in one way, shape, or form. They will fight. So once again, if you have the luxury to complain, I want you to shift that mindset into A, it's luxury, B, you're safe. So when it comes to this situation of removing that illusion, flip the paradigm. If this, then that. If I can complain, then I have the ability of free speech and I am safe enough that I can. It's a luxury. So I'm going to end this with that. And always, always stay curious, because curiosity is the gateway to a lot of these insights. It's the gateway to, if you're a man, to your masculinity, to your respect. Because how can anybody respect someone that is living in a fantasy world, disconnected from reality, and can't see someone as human? I'm going to mention one more statement on this, because one of the things is a lot of men, and I've had this discussion before, where men are like, well, I don't want to listen to women about women things. And I'm like, if you only listen to men, you must be gay. Because you are only going to attract men by listening to men. If you are not a woman and you are not listening to women on what women want, and you're only listening to men, you are on the path to being gay. And that is okay. But just acknowledge that. If you're not comfortable with the women, that is okay. It is okay to be gay. It is. But if you like women and you want to be with a woman, learn, and I'm saying this, learn how to listen to women. And if you are having challenges with that, which everyone experiences communication challenges, there is nobody that has been birthed in this world that has just outright been able to communicate perfectly to everybody. Maybe gurus, maybe they have a way of speaking that is different, but they've learned that. So, we have these communication issues that are in the midst. Always ask for support. And my God, if you are a man that can ask for support, that levels up, that is respectful. That is a respectable man that not only cares about his mental health, that is not indulging in fantasy, that is indulging in the real world, that is able to stand up and not be emotionally volatile because of ego, but that can be emotionally stable and impervious to being feeling emasculated, which means you are a man. You know that you're a manly man. If you are impervious to being emasculated, that is a person that earns respect. That is a person that is respect able because they are able to give it and therefore receive it. So I just want to leave you all with that insight. And I hope that made sense because when I'm doing this, it is kind of all over the place. But I wish you all well and have a good night.